What not to say to someone with a chronic illness. Sometimes it's best to keep your mouth shut. Comments are better left unsaid, especially when talking to one of the millions of North Americans living with invisible or chronic illness. This could be MS, HIV/AIDS, COPD, lupus, Crohn's, or fibromyalgia, just to name a few. We know you don't mean to hurt our feelings, but sometimes you do. This is my top 7 list of things not to say to someone who is chronically ill. But first, a bit about me. This is me when I was younger. I liked to play basketball and interview people and write stories for the school newspaper. So when I went to university, I did both. Not at the same time. But while I was at university, weird things started to happen to my body, like I couldn't move my arm. Suddenly, my leg stopped working. And sometimes my body got completely frozen, like I was stuck in an iceberg. I was in a lot of pain and really scared, so I went to a lot of doctors to figure out what was wrong with me. A lot of doctors, who were mostly men. And they poked me all over. And sometimes they asked me probing questions to see if I had mental illness, because they didn't think my symptoms were real. Then one doctor finally drew my blood and examined it. It turns out the answer was in my blood all along. It's just none of the other doctors had looked before. I had the telltale markers for systemic lupus, which means wolf in Latin. It's an autoimmune disease. It's when your disease-fighting attack cells go into overdrive and turn against your body, especially your joints and organs. The doctor gave me tons of prednisone, 16 pills, 80 milligrams, and it doused the inflammation, but it made my face really fat. For years now, I've lived with this chronic illness. Sometimes I'm a world-beating Wonder Woman. Other times I am weak and in pain. I've learned that people can say some pretty hurtful and insensitive things when you're always sick. And we know you don't mean to, so here's a bit of guidance. A top 7 list of what not to say to someone with chronic illness. Number 1, you don't look sick. That's the problem with having an invisible chronic illness. Sometimes we look great. People think we have get up and go, or maybe they think we're faking it because we look so good. It's occurred to me that maybe people would treat me and others with chronic illness better if we had a wheelchair or some crutches. But when you have a chronic illness, an all-out war can be going on inside of your blood and body. Remember the little guys with guns? That's like what is going on inside, and no one can see it. Number 2, in the things not to say to a chronically ill person. Are you eating enough ... That can be some leafy green stuff, or maybe some vitamin pills, or alpha-lipoic acid, or however you say that. Or are you trying some Reiki or getting a colon cleanse? People are always coming up to us and suggesting supplements and treatments that they think are going to make us get better. But I can tell you that those of us who have been sick for a long time have done all of the research, because who doesn't hope for miracle cures? And for the record, I do take vitamin D, fish oil, and CoQ10. Number 3, the third thing not to say is, I have a friend who has exactly what you have, and she died. Just so you know, we get this all of the time, and it's not helpful. And if we're having a good day, it's like a slap in the face or having someone squash your optimism. Number 4, on the flip side of that last point are the helpful people who say things like, I have a friend who is exactly what you have, and he runs marathons. I even had a GP once who told me he had a patient who cured his lupus by running marathons, like actually running marathons. So I switched doctors. We all have things we can or cannot do. Sometimes I walk for whole hours. Sometimes I even play tennis. But for the record, I can't even run a mile, and hearing about someone who can run 26 of them, not helpful. Number 5, then there are people who think we caused our illness and offer all sorts of helpful theories. Did you get what you have because you ate too much gluten? Or did you do something terrible in a past life? My roommate Laura was convinced I had agonizing leg pain because I was a heavy walker, and she hated the way I clomped on the stairs, and she told me so, repeatedly. What I've got is genetic with environmental triggers, but thanks for sharing your theories. Really. Number 6. Know what else not to say to someone with a chronic illness? I'd like to sleep all day too. Because being in bed is so stimulating and makes us feel so worthwhile. That's why we like to sleep all day. No, really. And finally, the number 7 thing not to say to one of us. You are so brave. Please don't say we're brave. We didn't sign up for this horrible illness. The diagnosis was dumped on us. But I can tell you that we are resilient and we are strong, enduring fatigue and pain and not knowing what is around the next turn, but still getting up each day to face it. What is most helpful is an understanding friend or family member to walk by our side as we face each uncertain day. Then there's no need to say anything because being by our side says it all.